Mr. Moody, nice to see you, sir.
All right, mate. How we doing?
Do you need a timer? Or are you?
Yeah, I'd love a timer.
Yeah, I can give you 15 minutes. Oh, an hour?
An hour?
That.
Nobody wants an hour.
There you go, sir.
Yet another vendor pitch. Well, maybe today we're going to do something a little bit different. One of the greatest advancements in musical history over the last decades was when, in 1991, Nirvana released their second album, Nevermind. At the time, it was a complete game changer. It brought grunge music to the masses. In comparison to the contemporaries at the time, power metal bands who spent millions on production, sang about drugs, sex, and in particular objectifying women, Kurt Cobain did something different. He was pro-feminist. He was anti-authoritarian. He wrote about his feelings. What Nirvana did was turn the problem upside down. As a young lad, only 15 years old, drinking cider in Central Park in Scunthorpe, Ben was supposed to give me a whoop at that point and failed me. It was nothing short of revolutionary at the time. And Nirvana recorded Nevermind for $65,000. What they did is they took the current problem and turned it upside down. And great art inverts what's happened before. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that Kurt Cobain knew about the mental model of inversion, but it is inversion. Take what is and turn it upside down. During World War II, military analysts were trying to work out better ways to reinforce the planes. So they looked at the bullet holes in the planes as they returned. So they looked to reinforce the wings and the fuselage. It was only when a scientist, Abraham Wald, turned around and says, well, these are the planes that survived. What about the planes that didn't? So he looked to inverse the problem. And actually what he recommended is that they enforce the areas of the plane that had no bullet holes. Sounds simple, right? The mental model of inversion. Let's look at the problem from a different way. So inversion allows us to reframe any problem. Instead of striving for success, let's work to avoid stupidity. So, let's give some examples. So how could we improve collaboration? Well, that's not the question. Actually, the question we should ask is how do we hinder collaboration, and then we work to avoid that particular situation. So we might think, well, to hinder collaboration in a remote hybrid world that we all work in, we'll make Teams really slow and not perform. We'll make Zoom, every time I launch it, automatically update itself 2 minutes before a meeting. Maybe I'll make file sync and share really complicated using a website, I don't know, maybe something like SharePoint. We could also ask, how do I get that promotion at work? No. How do I stay where I am? So if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'll probably just stay where I am. If I maybe don't do that training course, I won't be able to advance my skill set. You'll be able to stay where you are. By avoiding those problems, you can actually answer the first question of how do you get promotion? I think we live in a bit of a bubble in EUC. This is generally one of our marketing slides, and I'm sure your organisations, if you're a vendor like we are, have probably got a similar one. That idyllic world of hybrid work where we're all sat on a laptop, sat on the beach with a laptop, gracefully working away. When actually, and only with, I think, within our community, actually we're dealing with real people every day. Real people just trying to do a job and get back home to their families. We are the only ones who care how they do that. But your average Joe worker out there with a laptop using the systems that you guys are deploying today doesn't give a hoot. They honestly don't care. And that's our responsibility, to make sure people can go to work, to do their jobs, and just go home to their families at the end of the day. That's what I've done for the last 30 years, and many of the grey older heads in this room have done that as well. It's just about user experience. And we're facing that ever-changing world of complexity. The changes now and the rate of change is absolutely mind-boggling. I am absolutely delighted that I now work in pre-sales and I'm not a consultant out there. In the olden days, it was far easier. You virtualized your app on Citrix and that was a good job done. Today, there are just a myriad of options to consider. So, this leads me to my question today, and the one I think we should all ask, is how do we provide a poor user experience? So what we could do is make the requirement for an endpoint to have a really high hardware specification. Lots of CPU, lots of RAM, and a massive, gigantic hard disk. We'll make that operating system absolutely massive, maybe about 65 gig in places. And we'll stick a load of stuff on there that nobody's ever going to use. We'll have a myriad, multiple agents to secure and lock down that OS. We'll then install a load of applications, some of which the end users will actually use. Others we'll just stick on there anyway. Maybe we'll move the start menu around and stick adverts on there, and don't forget your weather notifications, because that's really important. And as only this community will know, that was a bad idea. So what we'll then do is we'll virtualize the apps. Maybe we'll take them SaaS. Brilliant. Job done. But it gets worse. Because then what we need is a management infrastructure to look after it all. Brilliant. Haven't we done well? Let's give ourselves a massive pat on the back and congratulate ourselves on a job well done. But this is what we've always done. This is just the way that we've always done it. We virtualized our desktop, we now put them in the cloud, or we put them on premises, and then we give the end users Windows to access those virtual Windows apps. How about we invert the problem? So if we make that end user experience complicated, we can make that end user experience worse by making the endpoint insecure. We can make it really hard to manage. We can make it incredibly expensive to look after. At IGEL, we inverted the problem and we came up with a different approach. We call this the IGEL preventative security model. And essentially what we're looking at doing is saying, users don't need to write to the operating system, so we'll make it read-only. What they actually need is a trusted application platform. Not that we don't trust them, but life out there is quite hard and nobody really knows quite what they're installing. So we'll put a chain of trust in there right from boot up to application access that's trusted at every level. We'll make sure everything is encrypted, so it's not an attack surface for cyber attacks or any other kind of security breaches. And what we'll also do is only give the user what they need through a modular design. If all you're accessing is AVD, then just have access to AVD. If you want to access Citrix and some SaaS applications, you need a Citrix client and you need a browser. Users don't want or need anything else. And then what we'll do is just give you a single pane of glass, a simple, elegant way to look after it. So whilst we all think we have a cloud strategy, an application strategy for the future, actually what we have is an endpoint strategy from the past. Thank you very much.